Hey everybody, Madeline here to talk about Saturn stationing direct. When Saturn goes direct, karmic cycles are going to break and we're going to start seeing new beginnings. Saturn is the great karmic teacher, and when it goes retrograde, it pulls each one of us inward and forces us to look at our shadows and confront ourselves basically and reflect on our patterns and take responsibility for our part in things, hopefully, and basically mature, grow up. And Saturn in Pisces is emotional waters. And when Saturn is in retrograde in Pisces, it churns up the emotional waters and brings up old emotional, painful memories and feelings can show up that are uncomfortable. And it can trigger us to escape these feelings and basically cause us to sort of feel an emptiness, a spiritual emptiness, which then causes us to repeat karmic cycles. So when Saturn is in retrograde, we meet that point again where we usually make a karmic choice. But our souls are growing in this period. It is a spiritual transit. It is about an inward evolution where we confront that part of us, that emptiness, that part where we seek something on the external to heal something on the internal. And we know it doesn't work now. So we're really facing that and making big strides and resisting the old ways, going back to something that isn't good for us. Painful memories can show up and it can bring feelings of guilt and shame. And we're really sort of going through a process where we're realizing where we were wrong. And this isn't for punishment, it's to expose our karmic patterns so that we can cleanse our karmic waters. Pisces is the end of the astrological sign. So when it is in Pisces, when Saturn moves into Pisces, it is ending a 29-year cycle. As soon as we clear these lessons, when Saturn is at the end degrees of the cycle, of the karmic cycle, in retrograde, we become so aware of our patterns that we suddenly clear them. We end that's how we end a karmic cycle because we've become aware of it. And in that awareness, we make choices. We're making different choices. We're changing who we are on the inside. We've ended a pattern. We're ending a big pattern, shall we say, that is a destructive pattern, that is a self-destructive pattern. So all of a sudden, you're going to see sudden things dissolve and end out of our lives, like a living situation, karmic relationship could just suddenly end. Um, a parent could pass away because, we're all here with karmic cycles and journeys with our parents. So a parent could pass. We could suddenly, shall we say, a karmic job suddenly ends and we're seeing a new beginning. Again, these cycles are ending, create a vacuum, which sucks in a new beginning. That's how the universe works. As soon as there's a vacuum, it's filled. So we're going to see the new beginnings as the old lives dissolve before our very eyes. Old living situations, jobs, relationships, partnerships, somewhere, wherever Capricorn rules your chart. I'm going to go through all the 12 signs. So, as our awareness grows during this retrograde period, by the time the planet stations direct, we've learned some major lessons because during the period that Saturn was in retrograde in July until now, we may have felt a lot of stagnation. Saturn would have shut and blocked a lot of things so that we really aren't so busy that we're not reflecting, right? And so we may have not had clarity until now. The clarity is building now as Saturn stationing direct, but there would have been a period of feeling of stagnancy and blocks and emotional heaviness. And like I say, karmic cycles definitely may have returned for a lot of people because we have to sometimes see in the retrograde period, we're reflecting as we're sometimes repeating the karmic cycle. Maybe that brings clarity to the reflection period, as it were. So a lot of job pressures could have been happening for a lot of people, a lot of confusion about our shall we say, path, our direction, spiritual numbness, heaviness, depression, but this is also that we confront our unresolved karma and face truths we haven't wanted to see. Old relationship boundaries are tested. The big chance, as like I say, that spiritual emptiness shows up. It could spark relapses, like I say, going back to things that aren't right for us, that are self-destructive. And we're basically facing and gaining clarity of the root cause of our karmic cycles and the emptiness that causes us to make the choices that we make that cause another karmic cycle, which we don't want to do right now. So Saturn direct brings us karmic clarity and the fog lifts. And we're basically back on our destiny, and the destiny resumes its flow. And we start to see the beginnings of a new stability. You can feel it in the energy. So Pisces is the energy of emotions, right? And like I said, when Saturn was in retrograde in Pisces, it churned up those emotions. Well, now that's all going to stabilize. Things are going to feel calm. And Saturn stationing direct is going to bring us a lot of discipline and maturity. And we're going to be able to make very big decisions, long-term decisions. We have a clarity about that. We know what we want now. We know what our new cycle is because we've cleared a karmic base choice point. I hope that's clear. We're making choices that are in alignment with our destiny, with a karmic justice. Um, yes, we're aligning with divine order. When we created our karma, we were making choices that were not in alignment with divine order. Karmic Saturn retrograde, we become aware of how we were making choices out of not in divine order, out of alignment with divine order. So as the planet Saturn stations direct, the energy, like I say, of karmic alignment starts to move forward. There's a momentum building. Things are starting to feel stable. And as this is happening, the universe acknowledges the inner growth, the hard work that we did, and says, you are now ready for the next step. Woohoo! So Saturn stationing direct is going to bring us all a lot of momentum forward in an area where we've done a lot of karmic clearing. And I'm going to go through all the 12 signs and talk about that for each of the sign. All right. See you there. All right, Cancer, you all have Saturn stationing direct in your ninth house. Now, Saturn has been in your ninth house now for about 3 years, where you may have found yourself to be taking your studies very seriously, to be very committed to some sort of higher learning, or to be teaching. Um, Saturn may have been blocking your teaching, if that's what you're here to do, if it's your dharma, because this is a dharmic house and Saturn is aligning you into your true dharmic path. So either you have been studying so that you are knowledgeable enough to become a teacher, or you have been studying so that you are knowledgeable enough to improve your career or to be qualified for an upgrade in your career. And now that's when Saturn goes retrograde, you may have been unclear as to your destiny and journey, and your dharma may have seemed unclear. You may have felt like you couldn't teach, or you didn't know enough, or your teaching efforts were blocked, or even perhaps your studying has been, shall we say, unclear where to study, where to go. And Saturn has been wanting you to become very disciplined and to be very focused and to, shall we say, have strong spiritual practices so that you can be centered and emotionally stable for your dharmic path, the new chapter that's starting for you here in February 14th, 2025. Now, with Saturn in retrograde in your ninth house, you may have really doubted your faith and your belief in what you were doing or your dharma. You may not have been sure about if it really is your dharma, if it's what you really wanted. Confusion definitely happens during a Saturn retrograde, and we have had Mercury in retrograde for the last couple of weeks. So, 3 weeks to be precise, and it is now direct. So, clarity has come in for you about these things. And Saturn, the karma that you're clearing in the Saturn in your ninth house, Saturn rules your seventh house of relationships. So you've been clearing a relationship pattern in getting into relationships just to create security rather than it being a soul aligned or a divine or Saturn wants us in divine order. It's trying to get us to restructure our lives by ending karmic cycles that are self-destructive, that are not in divine order and divine law. And especially when it's in your ninth house, it's like you're really becoming higher consciousness and really waking up to your karmic patterns in your relationships and perhaps even in your spiritual beliefs, where you may have taken on the spiritual beliefs of your relationships in order to fit into your relationships, or you haven't really dedicated yourself to your true spiritual path, and you've been too focused on relationships. Cancers tend to be very, very codependent with Saturn, Capricorn over the seventh. Now, Saturn direct, a relationship could very well go forward, a true soul aligned connection that is part of your Dharma with a soul contracted mission, sort of now taking steps forward. You are preparing for a new career in February 14th, 2026, when Saturn enters your 10th house, where a whole new cycle begins, a whole new 29-year cycle begins for your career. So you're really clearing your step as you prepare to step into this big new career. You're really clearing your vague misunderstandings or the vagueness you hold about your true spiritual beliefs. And by the time Saturn leaves this house, you will have a lot of conviction and a lot of belief in your faith or your purpose, your dharma, what you're here to teach, and a belief system, I suppose you could say, feels very integrated into a belief system that aligns with your soul, is now very integrated in your personality and who you are. It's become who you are now. For instance, me, I've been studying astrology deeply. I'm Cancer rising, and I do feel it being more part of my personality, you could say, who I am. Now, Saturn direct can also open up travel for you. If it is your destiny to travel and to teach, either or both. The travel may have been delayed when Saturn was in retrograde. Well, now it moves forward. You can start making travel plans again. Saturn direct will open doors to divine clarity. Like I say, support long distance travel, and actually, it can really resolve any legal matters and academic delays or study delays, or if you've been applying for college. But oh yeah, Saturn in your ninth house may have had you in university studying very hard, and you may have, shall we say, are getting ready to graduate here, or you had to maybe redo a course. Now in direct motion, you're in stable ability to graduate, shall we say. You've stabilized your grades and you're now qualified to graduate. Um, so a lot of good luck comes from this too, because the ninth house is good luck, and Saturn and Jupiter. The ninth house is a Jupiter house, a Dharma house, and Saturn there is trying to help you liberate your self-imposed, rigid mind that is preventing you from expanding your horizons and your consciousness and your career and your Dharma. And a lot of times that happens through travel. You really can open up our minds. So Saturn direct is really opening up your minds to all the possibilities that there are for you in your, because of your, what you've learned with Saturn there. You've seen your mind is going to open up to all these new possibilities and perhaps even awaken you to a new career, um, or some sort of big new project coming in. Um, you've had this beautiful water trine happening in your fifth and in your first and in your ninth. These are Dharma houses, who you truly are, what fills your cup, what is your Dharma. And then with the fifth house, it is the, shall we say, the creative, inspired actions that pull you into your Dharma, the act of creativity, entrepreneurial. And you're going to have Mercury there. So this beautiful water trine is really going to shift your destiny and align you with your Dharma, even more so than it may have felt in the last few months when Saturn was in retrograde, where you may have felt very stagnant and not really moving forward in your Dharma or even clarity completely on what that is. So this would definitely align you in divine Dharma, inspired, exciting, travel, creative ventures. Now, again, the fifth house can be a relationship too, goes forward because it also rules your seventh house, Saturn. So this would very much be aligned partnerships that are soul aligned and dharmically aligned and dharmic karmic justice connections, because we've cleared karma here. So you're going to connect with people that are part of your long-term new path that are a part of this. So it could be divine relationships. If you're not in your relationship, a true love can come in this energy and goes forward into a serious commitment. Reconciliations can happen. We had Mercury in retrograde. Mercury is now direct in your fifth house. Friends from the past show up. Jupiter is still in retrograde in your first house, which is making sure that you are integrating everything that you have learned in your Jupiter house, the ninth house. Now I'm going to do let me just mention the karma that you're clearing here. It is to be in codependent relationships, but it is also to not trust your gifts and believe in your abilities in these areas of spiritual leadership and faith in what you're here to teach. So I think I did cover that. Okay. Um, so yeah, I'm going to do a video soon about all the planets that are building up in Sagittarius in your sixth house. I was doing all the 12 signs for each month, but I think I felt too rushed with too much information in one reading. So I prefer to do more transits with less more posts with less cramming in less information, and it's less rushing for me. All right. I hope this was helpful. If you would like a personal reading, feel free to contact me on my website, soullevels.com. You can book there. There's a link. Or you can email me if you have any questions at madelaine.parker111@gmail.com. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. And thank you. Have a wonderful night. Namaste.